Good morning, dear friends. In my previous podcast, I had interviewed quite a few senior leaders from the IVD industry who have been marketing and selling diagnostic products. My today's guest, however, is into a different domain. He's not into selling a diagnostic product, but his company designs and develops diagnostic devices and other products for the diagnostic companies. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Suhas Tamras, who is the CEO of Syrma Johari MedTech Limited. And Suhas comes with about 29 years of corporate experience. And in this current role, he drives the company's strategic direction, international growth, and the design led manufacturing initiatives in the medical devices sector. Happy to have you here today, Suhas. So as we begin the podcast today, can you share your personal journey so far, your early life, academic background, formative professional experiences, and the path that led you to your current role as a CEO of Syrma Johari?
Sure. So talking about my early days, obviously, I came from a middle class background, where education in India, in typical middle class families, education is always very important. So likewise, uh, I grew up in a family where education was given a lot of importance, and that's where we made all the right grades, etc. And then after college, I studied electrical engineering. So I'm primarily a electrical engineer by training.
Right,
My first job was with Larsen and Toubro, where I chose to uh, be at their cement plant site, and that's where I learned the first lessons in embedded systems, PLC programming and stuff like that. And so that was my initial journey. But then very soon I realized that I had some flair for programming, and that too programming
right,
for the devices. And that's where I did my post graduation in software technology, and then
all right,
moved to embedded systems from a heavy engineering industry. So those
right,
were my initial days. I spent time programming for telecommunication systems. I was also working on projects which uh, wanted programs to be written for the elevator industry as well. So those were my initial, my tryst with embedded systems. Uh, Primarily, my turning point came when I got an opportunity as a seed team member of medical devices R&D services back in Patni Computers, and that's where I started working on pacemaker programmers. So that was a turning point. That was my first medical devices project, and I believe that that gave me a very solid grounding in overall zero defect engineering, as if I may call it, uh,
yeah,
because obviously pacemakers are so critical to patient safety, and programming the programmers that actually program the pacemaker. So there is a pacemaker that gets implanted, and then there is a external programmer which programs various parameters while the pacemaker is inside the human body. So one can understand the criticality of having a zero defect product in such case. And that was my first uh, medical devices project, if I may say. And then
right.
obviously, I grew on this whole journey. This was back in 2000, and since last almost 26 years now, I have been associated with medical devices. Programming was my passion, but then in 2013, 2014, I moved to more of a business roles.
Wonderful. So, how has your early years as into the product engineering shaped your strategic thinking and decision making as a chief executive now?
Yeah. Sangeet, back in mid 90s and late 90s,
Right,
embedded systems was a very upcoming field globally, and
right,
especially in India.
yeah,
Uh, the whole thing was memory was at a premium. So you would always had to do more for less. So that was, the constraints were very high. But at the end
Right.
of the day, functional and performance requirements of these devices was also very high. So we had to do a lot in lesser resources. So that was the
Yeah.
challenge, and I think uh, that also kind of subconsciously, uh, trained me to do more for less. Uh,
Right.
Problem solving, when you don't have too many tools at hand. Today, you have a lot of analyzers and various software tools that profile the code, do memory profiling, etc., etc. Uh,
Right.
Finding problems in embedded systems is very easy, but those days, you had to rely on your analytical skills and experience to solve the problem. So, so I think uh, a lot of lateral thinking started developing from those days, but that was
Right.
more to solve technical problems. But
Right.
I have been fortunate to be in situations where I have always been part of the growing businesses. So.
Right.
Uh, the business during that time when I was part of that particular team was small, but it had a lot of potential and we grew exponentially over a period of time. So I have all through my career been in those situations which required going beyond the brief and also being very aggressive, thinking out of the box and so on and so forth. So that I think built the overall professional character, if I may say,
Yeah.
to really think out of the box, look at the white spaces, look at the what the business problems need to be solved. And I think that I would say the grounding in embedded systems programming was the key, I think, to probably thinking out of the box, lateral thinking, and so on.
Wonderful. Wonderful. The reason I asked is in the in vitro diagnostic industry and as well as into the medtech industry, there are quite a lot of service engineers who are working. And
Yeah.
many of them also aspire to transition themselves from the technical side to the business leadership roles. Therefore,
Yes.
you have walked that path, very brilliantly. So, therefore, based on your journey, what mindset shifts or the competencies are essential for making this transition successfully from an engineer to the business leader?
Yeah. Sankit, when I started my career in medical devices, honestly, I did not have any grounding in biomedical engineering as such, right? So
Right.
I still remember the struggles that we had to even understand a ECG waveform, because for an
Mhm.
electrical engineer, any sine wave is like any waveform is like a sine wave. Uh,
Okay.
there are very little interpretations of electrical signals. However, a ECG is replete with a lot of data, electrophysiological data of the human heart. So uh, we had to learn the hard way. But as medical devices R&D and engineering started getting outsourced to India, there are a lot of opportunities today for biomedical engineers, biotech engineers, to do a lot of engineering R&D as well as the services business that gets outsourced to India. So opportunities are I mean tremendous as compared to what they were back 25 years back. So that is number
True.
one. Number two is I feel that a lot of opportunities come very silently, and I think we need to understand or identify them very intently and kind of capitalize on those opportunities. So I'll give you an example. A lot of time about 10 years back, this whole EU MDR transition happened in Europe. So
Right.
the EU regulations, they were directives. They were MDD, medical device directives, but then they moved into a regulatory framework primarily because of certain incidents in the medical devices patient safety area in Europe.
Right.
That gave immense opportunity for Indian companies to partner with European companies for remediating their medical devices. And
Right.
almost it was like a Y2K movement for India. And I think a lot of us we did. a lot of business with Europe. It was unprecedented.
Mhm. Right.
Thousands of engineers got recruited. We were short of biomedical engineers who had right regulatory experience as well. So
Right.
that was almost like as I said, Y2K movement for the medical device industry, services industry in India.
Mhm.
And that gave a lot of opportunities for biomedical engineers, biotech engineers, pharmacy graduates to be part of that remediation and learn more about the regulatory landscape across the world, not only Europe, but also US. So,
Right.
uh, that is the one of the opportunities or an example of how
Mhm.
opportunities knock at the doors, and if at all
Right.
we identify them well, we can definitely capitalize. Now, what I've also seen is a lot of technology people, like say for example, I came from a technology background. I did not have a business background.
Right.
At times, it becomes very difficult to transition to a business role, and that's primarily
Right.
because mindset is to think technical. Uh, uh, we are very great at solving technical problems. We take a lot of pride. However, I
Right.
think a lot of us miss to understand what the business problem the technology is solving, right?
Mm.
So
Absolutely.
having a end user perspective is very important. How
Right.
the habits and the paradigm shifts happen at the end user space is very important to understand how technology can be enabled to solve the end user problem. And this, my personal experience, visiting hospitals, being part of some of the clinical trials per se, or closed door, inspections that most of these KOLs have of early stage medical devices, that helped me to understand the end user perspective. And then I realized that technology is only a means to solve the problem, and it's not the end. So my
Right.
perspective changed, when I worked in the US almost for 3 years, visiting a lot of hospitals, visiting a lot of end patients, looking at the usability aspects of things. So that day gave a very different perspective. And then, from that perspective, from that day, uh, a lot of things changed in the way started looking at this medical devices world. So I believe that uh, a lot of engineers in the initial phases, if we
Yeah.
look at these devices being used in the clinical context by the end users, that will give us a lot of that gives us a lot of insights into the various design usability philosophies that needs to get
Mm.
implemented in the design. So that's the way I look at my journey. It has been a lot of learnings the hard way, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think it was all it came in the right time at the right time, and yeah, it has helped me a lot.
So I have picked up two key phrases in from what you said, Suhas. One is opportunities do knock at your doors, and therefore you grab it. Often it comes very silently, but it does come. It comes, and then you have to grab it. So that's one point that I've picked up. And the second is, as engineers, when you are dealing with technology, you need to have a broader perspective of how that technology is solving a user's problem, and that, as you rightly pointed out, it's the end user perspective of the technology. I mean, these are the two things that I picked up from what you said right now. And you also spoke about you said it was not easy, there were difficulties. That was your last statement. So, on that, let me ask you if you can share an early professional challenge that significantly influenced your leadership philosophy.
Having spent a lot of time, Sangeet, in the services industry, right? I mean, and at the very early stages when medical devices engineering was getting outsourced to India, uh, I think during those days, having the right people to
Hmm.
engineer and design medical devices were very far and few. Uh, all of us learned it the hard way, as I said, right? Because uh, being electrical engineers or being computer engineers or electronics engineers, a lot of these uh, clinical aspects or even regulatory
Right.
aspects or systems engineering aspects don't come naturally. So there is a
Right.
learning curve. Having said that, my my philosophy always has been that it's all about people at the end of the day. If you have the right teams in place, if you have the right attitude in place, uh, there is nothing that cannot be achieved. Yes, there will be challenges, there will be certain obstacles, but with the right attitude and the mindset to win, I think we definitely can surpass. And I am speaking this not just for the effects, but I have experienced this myself multiple times in my career, because as I told you earlier, I have been part of businesses that have always grown exponentially, and that required very different level of commitment and also mindset. I personally
Yes.
believe that there are certain inflection points in each our careers, and there are certain projects that start or they define how we start looking at ourselves, right? Uh, uh, so there were a couple of such projects, especially I can relate to certain projects when I did for this cardiac rhythm management company earlier in my career, where there were not only technology challenges, but after implementing certain algorithms or implementing software, it was very difficult for us even to understand whether that software is working right or no from a clinical perspective, right?
Mhm.
So obviously we had to go to the cardiologist, we had to take help of electrophysiologist and so on and so forth. Uh,
Right.
so so there was a lot of learning, along the way. So challenges, while they were there, but as a team, we uh, surpassed those challenges, and
Right.
uh, you know, we launched certain products at a breakneck speed in the US market. They got US FDA approval, and the kind of satisfaction that we had after uh, our products received US FDA approval, and when they were launched, and I was in the US where I saw some of these pacemaker programmers uh, in action in the clinical settings. And that was a goosebump moment, honestly, because a lot of times when we do certain things, we don't get to see end users using it a lot of times,
Right.
especially in the technology and engineering space. Uh,
Right.
so, so that was very fulfilling. Uh, Seeing that we are able to make a difference in people's lives, I think it's very fulfilling beyond having the fulfillment of technology excellence.
Yes. Fully agree. Well, coming to your present company, that's Syrma Johari MedTech Limited. Can you introduce the company to the people who may not be familiar with your organization as of today?
Yes.
You can talk about its origins, manufacturing facilities, technological capabilities, as well as what truly differentiates your company from the rest of similar companies into this medtech ecosystem.
Yeah. So Syrma Johari MedTech, which was erstwhile Johari Digital Healthcare, I think is a
Yeah.
very unique company which was started as a garage project back in
Mm-hmm.
1970s by the our
Mm-hmm.
late founder, Mr. Satyendra Johari. Uh,
Right.
he was very passionate about engineering, and he actually worked in the US and came back to India to do something for the
Okay.
country. So Make in
Right.
India was in his mind right back in 1970s,
Right.
while we talk about it a lot in today's world.
Yeah.
He started this as a company which manufactured hearing aids, and then transitioned uh, to producing uh, physiotherapy, pain management devices, and medical aesthetic devices. Uh, One thing led to another, and then the company pivoted towards also manufacturing for other customers, especially in the US. Uh,
Right.
and that's how the whole pivot towards being a contract manufacturing company happened. And this was back in probably early 2000s. But
Yeah.
it's very noteworthy to also mention here that some of the products that Johari Digital manufactured in the early 1980s and 1990s, they received US FDA approval back in
Mm-hmm.
1989, where
All right.
US FDA was very, it was not a very popular term that we used to identify with, right? Very few people knew about it. So the company has a rich lineage and DNA of innovation, as well as
Right.
regulatory compliance as well. And in 2023, the Syrma Group, which also is one of the leading EMS companies in India today, it's number two
Right.
by market capitalization, uh,
Right.
acquired majority stake in Johari Digital, and that's how we now are called as Syrma Johari MedTech. I came on board as a CEO
Right.
with the clear mandate that we had to become one of the largest CDMO MedTech CDMO companies in the world. Uh,
Wonderful.
to answer your question as to what differentiates us, I think we like to call ourselves as a design-led manufacturing company. Uh,
Right.
we we have the capability to take a concept which is at a very early technology and clinical stage and
Mhm.
run with it and actually start giving it form and shape. So we have engineers who are able to uh, work along with our customers to do the industrial design, uh, the initial usability studies, and so on and so forth. Uh, and then obviously write engineering requirements for that particular device, take it to systems engineering process, and then obviously do the electrical, mechanical, electronics, uh,
Mhm.
software, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Uh, while engineering remains and design and engineering remains a forte, we also have a very formidable regulatory expertise in house. So we have about
Right.
50 plus engineers working on various regulatory aspects and regulations across the globe. Uh,
Mhm.
when regulatory compliance is addressed right at the design stage, I think there is a lot of grief that gets solved, or a lot of problems that probably arise at the verification and validation stage, or at the pre-compliance stage, as I would call it. It kind of uh, eases that phase. Otherwise, there are a lot of surprises at the VNV or the regulatory compliance stage, and then there is a lot of rework that needs to be done. So
Mhm.
we have certain design processes where we take care of the regulatory aspects upfront, and that has
Right.
been uh, a differentiator or a secret sauce, I would say, which has
Right.
resulted into a lot of cost savings, number one, and number two is, I think, the resulted into faster time to market as well.
Right. Good. So within the medtech domain, which are those key domains that Syrma Johari currently specialize in?
Okay. So we work across about five broad verticals, but
Okay.
our emphasis has been primarily on one is obviously medical aesthetics and pain management, which has been the primary business. We have a lot of platforms around these technologies, whether it is radio
Mhm.
frequency, whether it is lasers, whether it is IPL. So we have technology platforms that can be reused and used as accelerators for our
Mhm.
customers' product development. So that
Mhm.
that area remains our core strength. We also are very strong in developing point of care devices for the IVD segment as well. And we again have demonstrated capability not only in designing but also in very uh, high precision and high class manufacturing of these devices. Uh, Patient monitoring is another area where we work with a lot of companies working in bedside monitors, ICU monitors, and even wearables.
Right.
We also
All right.
work in critical care equipment where we manufacture ventilators, CPAPs, which are primarily used in the ICU settings. So last but not the least, we also are now, foraying into AI-based, technologies, where
Mhm.
how we can apply AI to some of the use cases in diagnostics is something that we are
Yep.
also looking at. So that's obviously
into the
the
diagnostic.
emerging area, and we are investing in a lot of research in AI as applied to medical devices and digital health.
So I broadly wrote a few points that you said. One is you are into aesthetics, then pain management, monitoring systems, cardiac related, and lately into diagnostic as well, the AI based.
Yes. Yeah.
That's your referring into. Wonderful. Great. Uh, you know, if you can make these terminologies a little simpler for most of us to understand, yes, most people know CDMO, as you said, but then again, EMS is another terminology which defines what you do. So, if you can speak a little bit about it, or you can simplify both terminologies for the viewers.
Yeah. So, EMS, which is electronic manufacturing services, it
Right.
typically uh, implies that manufacturing of the electronic boards that goes
Right.
into various gadgets today. Uh, so every electronic uh, gadget that we use today has
Yeah.
a PCBA, as we call it, right? There is a PCB, the green PCB, and
Yeah.
then there are electronic components mounted on top of it.
Yeah.
Uh, Based on the complexity and the intended use of the particular device, the complexity of the PCBA changes, right? So,
Right.
uh, so when it comes to medical devices, uh, uh, there is a lot of electronics that is used, and one of
Yes.
our expertise is to manufacture the PCB assemblies, as we call it, the PCBAs, the PCB assemblies
Right. Right.
for medical devices. Uh,
Right.
so, uh, so we have uh, a very state-of-the-art manufacturing factory in Jodhpur, in
Yeah.
Rajasthan. That's where
Okay.
most of our medical devices get manufactured.
Yeah.
But we also have manufacturing locations across almost 13 sites in across India, right from Gurgaon, Noida in the north, to
Okay.
Chennai and Bangalore in the south, and
Yeah.
also obviously, as I said, Rajasthan is our hub for medical devices, and then we
Yeah.
also have manufacturing facility in Pune. Uh,
Okay.
we do have our design center also in Pune, where that's where most of the design gets done. And when you talk about CDMO, it's primarily contract design and manufacturing organization for medical devices
Yeah.
in the medical devices context, where
Yeah.
uh, medical device OEMs they outsource
Yeah.
design and manufacturing to companies like us.
Yeah.
So our job is to take the specifications and build and design the medical devices or IVD instruments to the specifications, and then transfer it to manufacturing in our factories, where
Yeah.
electronics, the plastics, the metals, they get manufactured. We do a box build and assembly of these medical devices. There is significant regulatory compliance that happens in terms of certifications, documentations for various certifications like the US FDA certifications or MDSAP certifications, which essentially covers five regions across the globe. So
Right.
this, the due diligence, the overall testing for these kind of certifications happen post manufacturing, and that is where once we have the certifications in place, we ship these devices to our end customers, and they can be anywhere across the globe. Our primary, uh, you know, customers are concentrated in the US, Europe, and Japan. That's where most of our customers are in, and we also do significant business in India as well. So that's the nature of our EMS as well as the CDMO business, Sangeet.
Right. Wonderful. And you said you have 13 sites in India, design as well as manufacturing. I believe you also have a few sites outside India, right?
Yes, yes. So we have a design center in Serbia,
Okay.
in Belgrade, so which is our nearshore center that we have set up to service our customers in Europe. In addition
Great.
to that, we have design and manufacturing facilities in Stuttgart as well, which
Okay.
again services our customers in the Germany and the Western Europe region. So these are the
Right.
two engineering and manufacturing centers in Europe. Additionally,
Right.
we do have sales presence in the US, and we are actively looking for setting up our design and manufacturing base in US as well as we speak.
All right. All right. So, if I understand from what you said, you are much more than a typical EMS. You are CDMO plus EMS plus regulatory services plus probably a post-marketing surveillance service. I mean, all of them integrated into one. If
Yes,
if I understood you right.
yes, absolutely. So,
Wonderful.
as I said, right, I mean, uh, the intent is to be like a one-stop shop for our customers. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think it's not only about being a low-cost manufacturing center based out of India. That's not the positioning that we have. I think our uh, positioning is to be a value-based partner for our customers in the medtech space because we uh, have absolutely all the services that a medtech OEM would require and also the expertise to make sure that our customers are successful in the global marketplace.
All right. Okay. So, EMS organizations such as yours are a relatively new partners for many of the Indian diagnostic companies. So,
Mhm.
how do you see the evolution of the EMS model within India's diagnostics and medtech industry, especially IVD, IVD diagnostic industry, if you can focus on that.
Okay. So I think EMS as such, is a relatively new industry in India as well, especially
Right.
when, there's a lot of impetus on electronics manufacturing that the current government has been kind of giving an impetus to. So the way I think this whole theme is evolving is that while electronics was always done out of China, primarily because of the economies of scale, uh, more and more more and more IVD and medtech companies are now relying on the Indian EMS companies,
Right.
primarily also uh, for protecting their IPs, number one. And number two, I think both EMS companies and companies like ours, who do the entire box build solutions, now we also have a very robust supply chain across the globe, right? So that is also a great incentive for a lot of global IVD and medtech companies to look at India as a serious
Right.
alternative to China. I think we have been talking about China plus one for a long time, but
Yeah.
uh, by virtue of uh, having the right supply chain and the sourcing strategies,
Yeah.
having the right you know business models and the cost models when it comes to manufacturing, and also having the right talent to service not only the manufacturing needs but also the design needs of our customers. And then, as you rightly said, uh, there is significant engineering and uh, regulatory activities that happen in the medical devices and the IVD space, even post market. So even
Yeah.
that space, since we have that expertise, India as a destination to partner with is becoming very attractive, primarily because it's not only about EMS, it's also about the allied services that are very important for the medtech and the IVD industry.
Right. Wonderful. Suhas, while I was reading up about your company and doing a little bit of research, I came across this terminology called DFM, Design
Okay.
for Manufacturing, right? If you can
Yes.
talk about it a little bit and And how does this approach, DFM approach, enhance the global competitiveness of our Indian medtech companies?
Yeah. So Sangeet, typically in a medical devices, a product life cycle, when the whole uh, clinical and R&D phase starts, while companies develop their proof of principle or a proof of concept. Uh,
Mhm.
it's not necessary that the manufacturing aspects are always considered. It's more the focus is more on proving the intended use, number one, the clinical outcomes, and then obviously addressing the regulatory pathways as well. Especially in the Western world, if at all, the regulatory pathway and the insurance pathway are not considered in the early,
Right,
product life cycle, then I think there is a risk that, the device will not get the regulatory approvals. And the other risk is that the insurance companies may not pay for it. In both the cases, I think, however, uh, however cutting edge technologically the device may be, the commercial viability becomes questionable, and that's where I think
right,
the focus from the designers is more on proving the proof of principle and the proof of concept. Uh,
right.
so that's where I think some of the aspects of whether the device is manufacturable or no, gets
Mm.
compromised, right? And that's where, when these med tech companies or IVD companies come to us with their
Right,
engineering prototypes for
right,
manufacturing, I think there is significant phase where we have to invest engineering skills into to make it manufacturable, right?
right,
Manufacturable
right,
from a design perspective, manufacturable from even a cost perspective,
right,
optimizing the overall BOM cost, making
right,
sure that the sourcing happens from the right partners. There is
right,
economies of scale in sourcing, etc., etc.
right.
So that's where that DFM phase comes into play, and we
Mhm.
partner with a lot of companies to ensure that the engineering prototype that we get for manufacturing is also engineered in a way where it is cost effective and also manufacturable at scale.
Right.
Another
Okay.
thing that we now also practice, since we also do a lot of design for our customers, is embedding this process right at the design phase. So we don't wait for the design to get over. If at the early stage of the design, we are able to also assess manufacturability and the viability
Right,
of that design to get manufactured efficiently, that's what we
right.
want at the end of the day, so that we can completely eliminate a separate design for manufacturing phase. And that results into cost savings as well as faster time to market. So wherever
Oh,
we, design for our customers, this aspect is taken care of upfront. And we also recommend that to our customers now, that if at all, at an early stage, we get involved with your engineering and design teams, we can save a lot
right.
of cost and time at the DFM stage of the product.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah,
These are, newer things for generally who have, for an industry which has been heavily dependent upon importing products. I'm talking about
yes,
the diagnostic devices. Even today, more than 80% of the diagnostic products devices are being imported into India. Therefore, these nuances of the manufacturing that you are talking about, these are great learning for most of the people who are viewing this podcast.
I'm sure.
Right. So, how do you assess India's current position in the global medtech ecosystem? That's one question. And the related question that I have in my mind is, where do you see the largest opportunities as well as pressing challenges facing our India's companies?
I think there is significant impetus being given for medical devices manufacturing in India today, especially with the
Mhm.
PLI schemes that are coming up in various categories. I
Right.
think there is a lot of push and uh, you know uh, incentivization through the right policies that the government is providing for manufacturing. I think even the regulatory environment is evolving. The CDSCO regulations are also in line with what the global regulations are. So there is not too much of a delta between what a CDSCO would ask for versus what a UMDR or a USFDA would ask for. So a lot of devices that we are manufacturing as per the CDSCO guidelines are also more or less in line with the global regulations as well. I think what probably I see can be improved, and obviously the onus is on us to do that, is to also improve the overall R&D and design capabilities for indigenous medical devices, right? I think the tech service industry in India started as a service industry, right? Back in 90s, where we started a lot of software services and so on and so forth. I think the mindset always has been to monetize as soon as possible. I think which may or may not be possible, especially when it comes to MedTech R&D, right? Because we are talking about very complex devices addressing a lot of complex health issues. And in order to uh, come up with a clinically efficient solution, which also is also technologically competitive, I think it will take time. And I think uh, the researchers, especially in India, I think we need to uh, get that time to experiment. Not all experiments are going to succeed. Maybe there will be a 10%, 20% success rate. But then I think that uh, that leeway has to be given, and those R&D funds need to be flowing in to ensure that there is significant indigenous R&D that happens on medtech,
True.
especially when the needs of our country are very different than the needs of the developed world.
Right.
Given our population density, and also the fact that uh, significant percentage of our population lives in remote areas. Uh, how do we leverage the overall digital infrastructure, the mobile 5G infrastructure to deliver services, which is happening today, right? I mean, it's all happening. But my personal, feeling and observation is that I think there is significant money that needs to come in R&D, and uh, there has to be an encouragement to also at times also absorb failures when it comes to coming up with indigenous medical devices. And obviously, if you look at last 10 years, Sangeet, most of our IITs have a bioengineering course now, which was not the case earlier. Uh,
Yeah.
Almost every IIT has a biomedical or a bioengineering course. Uh, there are uh, there are incubators within most of these IITs and even premium colleges across India, uh, where there is a lot of impetus that is given to developing medical devices, uh, which are primarily tuned towards use cases that apply to India. So that's a significant
Yeah.
uh, move, but I think there is a lot needs to be done, I believe.
True. True. Great. So, Suhas, if you can talk about some of the emerging technologies in the medtech space, and one or two that excites you the most.
I think having worked on some of these point of care diagnostics since almost like a decade or more now, I think this whole concept of democratization of healthcare is very fascinating. Where instead of patient coming to the lab is taken to the patient, right? Where even say patient monitoring, having wearables which can be used by patients in the home settings is also very exciting. So I think miniaturization of medical devices or diagnostic devices, that is number one. Number two, the whole uh, service delivery through the digital infrastructure is a second theme that I find very, very interesting, uh, where healthcare is now reaching to the farthest areas within the country. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and obviously the third part is the whole AI application of AI in uh, various use cases, whether it comes to whether it is diagnostics, whether it is monitoring, which gives some early indications of uh, you know uh, problems or diseases that could kind of manifest at a later stage. I think these are the trends I see personally very fascinating, and we also are working in these areas to see how we can contribute towards developing devices that kind of integrate these technologies as well.
Right. Great. You spoke about the PLI schemes, the R&D capabilities that need to be developed, also emerging courses into bioengineering, bio IT, and all. But as a country, what should we get right in the so that in the next 5 years we become a global design and manufacturing hub for MedTech,
So, so there are various
especially from the
models.
private sector. Also, if we can add a few points.
Yes, yes. So there are various models, Sangeet, which I have seen across the world.
Yeah.
And this whole consortium of uh, you know uh, good universities, academia,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, entrepreneurs, venture
Okay.
capitalists, and also companies who specialize in filing patents and the IP attorneys. I think this whole consortium is in I've seen works brilliantly in some of the settings like the US, where there are incubators within certain universities which facilitate these kind of interactions, and that's where a lot of research that happens in the universities is applied research, and
Right.
we see a lot of startups that come from US universities that eventually are able to commercialize products in a very, very big way, right?
Right.
Uh, I think if we are able to develop that kind of an ecosystem where uh, uh, a lot of OEMs and the corporates tap into the applied business that happens in our universities like the IITs or IIScs, and then help them commercialize that, or there has to be some handholding towards commercialization. So from
Mhm.
research to taking it to an applied research and then to commercialization, if that ecosystem is developed in our country, I think that's going to be very, very formidable. I personally have seen these kind of ecosystems in the West, in US as well as in Europe, in Switzerland and in Germany, and
Right.
I think if we can develop something like this,
Mm.
it's going to be really. I think it can bring in an exponential effect to the overall R&D that happens in the medtech space in India. I think
Wonderful.
the AMTZ also is a great example, right? The AMTZ in Vizag,
Yeah.
they have a great ecosystem where they have not only the facilities to manufacture and design, but also there are labs that are being set up. There is a entire ecosystem that can be tapped into
Yeah.
by entrepreneurs. So
Yeah.
similar such ecosystems and hubs, if you are able to develop, I think that can be great for the overall industry as such. And I think there is enough funds and money that we have today. There are a lot of private players who are also creating their own medtech funds, uh, uh, in India, which is very heartening. So there is money, there is a private equity that the players who are willing to fund companies who
Right.
have the right ideas, and who are able to commercialize their research and take the products to the market.
Wonderful. Great. So, what would be your key strategic advice to business heads and CEOs of Indian IVD and MedTech companies who aspire to build globally competitive organizations?
Advice is a very strong word. It's just uh, as as colleagues from the same fraternity, the same industry. I think what my endeavor always also has been is that I think we portray ourselves as valuable and strategic partners to the global companies, especially when it comes to the services industry like ours. I think I don't want us to be looked upon as a low cost only destination, right? We have a very formidable pool of talent. There are right policies in place, and uh, we also have the right regulatory, regulations. That environment also is maturing as we speak. So I think we all need to, kind of project ourselves as a very strategic and valuable partners for the medtech industry globally. And
Right,
while Make in India is a big initiative driven by the government, I think Make in India for the world is not something that is very far away. While Make in India for India is something that already has started, but I don't
right.
see why Make in India for the world cannot happen. Primarily because, as I said, of our the expertise that we have in the country and the focus that now is being brought in, especially for the medtech industry. So my primary thing is, I think we all need to position ourselves as value-based partners rather than, a cost of partners that can offer cost arbitrage.
Wonderful. All right, as we come closer to the end of today's podcast, Suhas, tell us something about Suhas Tamras that most of the people would not know.
Uh, I think there's nothing that is is very unique that most people would not know. Uh, yeah, but I think while I have always been very passionate about medtech and IVD and health tech generally, uh, I would just like to tell you, that I also was a very avid musician in my early days. I
Wonderful.
was self-taught, and probably, I did not have the courage to become a full-time musician. But
Wonderful.
at any given point of time, I do spend time listening to music, playing music, and whenever I hang my boots, that's the thing that I would like to pursue for the rest of my life. So music has been a passion, and I obviously, one doesn't get time in the overall travel schedules and the kind of life that we lead today, right? But yeah, I think the hope and the wish is that at some point of time, I do get a lot of time to spend listening and making music.
That's one area we have common interests. Great to have you with us today, Suhas. The session has been very captivating because most of the things that you spoke are unique and new to the industry. And therefore, more than a podcast, I think this was a master class from you.
I think.
And there were a lot of new information, new dimensions to the understanding of the industry. And I think companies such as yours are torchbearers of the innovation and designing. And as you rightly said at the end, that is make in India for the world.
Yeah.
With that, before we close the podcast, I wish to thank the viewers for watching this podcast. Please reflect upon the discussions here as well as share your thoughts in the comment box below. And thank you, MedDevice,